Welcome back to Mike's Retro Gaming. The late 80s and early 90s were defined by the third and fourth generation console wars, as Sega and Nintendo battled for living room dominance. Sega seized the initiative by launching the Genesis in October 1988, giving it a crucial head start over the Super Nintendo, which wouldn't arrive until 1990 in Japan and 1991 in North America. This early advantage, combined with sharp marketing and arcade-quality experiences at home, helped the Genesis carve out a massive audience. By the time production wound down, more than 30 million consoles have been sold worldwide, with a library of over 875 officially licensed games spanning nearly every genre imaginable. Tens of millions of those games found eager players, cementing the Genesis as a cornerstone of 16-bit gaming and a key player in one of the fiercest rivalries in industry history. With the context established, let's take a look at the top 10 highest-rated games on the Genesis by users of GameFAQs. Gunstar Heroes blasted onto the Sega Genesis in September 1993, and few action games since have matched its sheer intensity. Treasure's debut is a runaway explosion of color, speed, and chaos. Every stage feels like a carnival of ideas packed into one relentless ride, tossing in minecarts, rolling dice boards, and frantic boss encounters that push the Genesis further than anyone thought the console could go. The ingenious weapon system, combining 4 base shot types into 16 unique power-ups, let players tailor the madness to their style. Co-op play doubles the fun, turning living rooms into arcades of pure mayhem. With striking visuals, a pulsing soundtrack, and relentless bullet hell energy, Gunstar Heroes earns its place as a defining action masterpiece of the 16-bit era, and remains one of the purest distillations of Treasure's vision for action gaming. In the summer of 1993, Rocket Knight Adventures gave the Genesis something different, a platformer where a rocket-powered possum could carve a legacy of his own. Bursting with color and inventive mechanics, the game blends classic action platforming with fast-paced shooting segments to keep players on their toes. Sparkster's Rocket Pack and Sword Dash add a thrilling layer of mobility and combat, letting you blast through enemies or rebound across stages. Each level delivers variety, from minecart runs to shoot-'em-up sequences, capped by creative boss encounters. The vibrant visuals, character sprites, and a dynamic Genesis soundtrack highlighted just how much Konami could draw from Sega's hardware. Sparkster kept flying with sequels, but the 1993 debut still stands tallest in the series. Joe Musashi slashed his way back on the Genesis with Shinobi 3: Return of the Ninja Master, a blistering showcase of the console in July 1993. Sega refined the formula from Revenge of Shinobi with smoother animations and sharper controls, including a wider moveset that made Joe feel faster and more agile than ever. Parallax backgrounds and detailed sprite work brought the stages to life, while the dynamic soundtrack kept the action pulsing. The addition of wall jumping and drop kicks give players more ways to strike and maneuver than ever before. Levels shifted constantly, throwing in horseback and surfing segments before challenging players with inventive bosses. With its strong stage variety and tight design, Shinobi 3 stood as both a technical triumph and a worthy return for the series' most famous ninja. By 1994, Contra had already defined run-and-gun chaos on the NES, but Contra Hardcore took that formula to new extremes on the Genesis. Konami pushed the console hard, filling the screen with dazzling explosions and featuring a pounding soundtrack that fueled the non-stop action. The responsive controls make weaving through enemy fire and unleashing weapon power-ups feel razor sharp. Bringing a friend along multiplies the mayhem, while branching paths and multiple endings add serious replay value. Fierce, stylish, and uncompromising, Contra Hardcore remains a hardcore highlight of the Genesis era and a standout chapter in the Contra legacy. Lightning Force: Quest for the Dark Star hit the Genesis in July 1992, packing stages with colossal beasts and the kind of bullet hell chaos that kept players on edge. The first 4 stages could be tackled in any order, letting players chart their own path before diving into the game's more punishing gauntlet. The ability to control ship speed offered an extra layer of precision, while diverse weapon options let players tailor their approach to every battle. The visuals still impress, with striking enemy designs and a masterful use of parallax scrolling that made each stage feel immense. Backed by a legendary soundtrack, Lightning Force is remembered as a landmark in the golden age of 16-bit shooters. In December 1992, at the peak of the beat-em-up boom, Streets of Rage 2 smashed its way onto the Genesis and set a new benchmark for the genre. The sequel paired excellent sprite work with expanded moves and grappling options, giving each fighter a distinct identity in both look and playstyle. Levels move through vibrant city lights, heavy industry, and even carnival grounds, with depth enriched by smart use of foreground details. The soundtrack by Yuzo Koshiro became legendary, with electronic house and funk influences that gave the game a contemporary urban edge. Two-player co-op kept the action lively, with a second player able to drop in whenever the fight called for reinforcements. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, and fans still call it one of the premier beat-em-ups to appear on the Sega Genesis. Released on the Genesis in December 1993, Phantasy Star 4: The End of the Millennium is often hailed as one of the greatest RPGs of the 16-bit era. Sega delivered vibrant visuals and inventive manga-style cutscenes that gave the story a cinematic flair, while its cast of characters stood out both in design and in combat. Players traveled across multiple planets using vehicles like the Land Rover and Ice Digger, expanding exploration beyond traditional dungeon crawling. Strategic depth came from a robust system of techs and skills, pre-programmed macros for smoother battles, and powerful combination attacks that rewarded experimentation. With its sci-fi focus and nods to the original game, Phantasy Star 4 secured its place as the cornerstone of the Genesis RPG catalog. Here's a few games that nearly cracked the top 10 on the Genesis. Speeding onto the Genesis in November 1992, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 launched with impact, establishing Sonic as the centerpiece of the Genesis experience. Larger, more colorful sprites and intricately detailed backgrounds reflected the series' evolution, with zones that blended fast action and exploratory depth. The variety of settings gave the game an impressive sense of scope, with detail that carried from bright skylines to darker, more industrial spaces. The introduction of the spin dash streamlined Sonic's momentum, making the action faster and more fluid than ever. Tails made his debut as Sonic's loyal sidekick, with a second controller allowing another player to take control for co-op play. Sonic 2 stands as the point where Sonic went from a promising mascot to a symbol of the Genesis itself. Marching onto the Genesis in October 1993, Shining Force 2 dared players to dig deeper with secrets, promotions, and evolving strategies. Its expansive cast offered one of the largest rosters of the 16-bit era, with characters distinct in both personality and battlefield role. Exploration rewarded curiosity, as secret allies could be discovered off the beaten path. The promotion system gave players the thrill of evolving their heroes into stronger forms, sometimes along branching paths that reshaped strategy. Combat itself unfolded on grid-based maps where positioning and unit variety mattered deeply, ensuring battles stayed engaging throughout. By pairing accessibility with meaningful complexity, Shining Force 2 carved out its reputation as a true classic of the strategy RPG genre. When Sonic the Hedgehog 3 hit the Genesis in February 1994, it was only half of Sega's grand vision. It introduced bigger levels, a save system, and flashy new mechanics like elemental shields, while pushing storytelling further with mid-bosses and smooth transitions between stages. But its 6 zones wrapped up abruptly, more like a part 1 than a complete adventure. Later that year, Sonic & Knuckles followed up as the missing part 2. It added Knuckles as a playable character, introduced branching routes tailored to him, and pushed the narrative towards a proper finale. By itself, though, it lacked context, starting midstream with little explanation. Together as Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the lock-on cartridge restored the full game Sega intended. The result was a massive 14-zone epic, with 3 distinct playstyles, expanded saves, and super emeralds that unlocked powerful hyperforms. The continuity finally clicked, turning 2 ambitious halves into a single adventure that remained the pinnacle of 2D Sonic. Thanks for watching. What's your top 5 Sega Genesis games? Leave a comment below and let me know. Also, if you enjoyed the video, help me grow the channel by pressing the like button and subscribing to the channel. More retro gaming content is always being released. Until next time.